Hello everyone and welcome to the patch 25.S1.3 Thresh Top Guide. So, a little bit about me. Um, I have been playing Thresh for a little over 2 years now, about as close as I could call a one trick. I still don't consider myself an OTP, but he is definitely, by a long shot, my most played character. And most importantly, I have played enough games of support Thresh that I could probably count them on my hands, not including maybe versus AI while leveling accounts and stuff like that. So, I definitely know more about Thresh Top than I do any other character in the game. I'm not going to claim to be any high elo geek, because I'm not. I'm actually unranked, and I do not recommend playing Thresh in ranked, not because I don't think he's strong enough to be in ranked, I just think that pretty much anybody, um, any rank, I was gonna say something below like Masters, but like any rank, people are gonna mental boom when they see Thresh Top, so I recommend not picking it. If you do want to pick it, I think everything in this guide will work excellently. It's just keep in mind your teammates will not be happy, and it will be your fault for everything, quote unquote. I have a little over 100,000 mastery on Thresh as of now. I think I'm actually about 103,000 right now. Um, but yeah, and I have 1,500 takedowns since I got my starter Eternals on Thresh. So when it comes to runes on Thresh, you're generally gonna go Fleet Footwork. One thing you have to think about if you're gonna craft your own runes is Thresh isn't at all a traditional support tank. Most support tanks want to just optimize their tankiness. Thresh is tanky enough. He's by far one of the most tanky late game support tanks at all. So, you want to, when you're in top lane, optimize for your laning phase. You do have a huge advantage that is being a ranged champion. You're not very ranged, and you actually have. You're one of the few champions that have a modifier called wind-up duration. So most marksman champions have a wind-up duration of 1. That basically means it's just normal. Senna has a wind-up duration of like 0.83, which means she auto-attacks nearly 20, or like her wind-up is 20% slower than a normal marksman. Thresh has a wind-up of 0.5 something. So he's almost 50% slower on windup. So you don't want to stack too much attack speed. But Thresh also gets 1.7 on hit per soul, also 17 every 10. That's how I like to look at it. So it's good to have a little bit of attack speed. So I often, if you look here, I always go attack speed as a mini rune with alacrity. Another thing that's important, you're a ranged champion, but your abilities cost a lot of mana. Not as much mana as other characters, but quite a bit still. So it's good to run Presence of Mind. It's better than any of these other ones up here for Thresh, because you're a ranged champion, so you don't get the full sustain from killing minions, and you're probably not going to be killing a bunch of people in a team fight as Thresh. And that's okay. In the most matchups, you're going to want to run Fleet Footwork, not because of the healing. I think that's why most people take Fleet Footwork. You want it for the movement speed. Into champions like Jax, Mordekaiser, Set, and Darius, that little bit of movement speed can completely nullify any engage they have. And by engage, I mean CC abilities, because all of those pretty much have one way of stunning you and then beating the shit out of you. For Mordekaiser, it's his grab. Same with Set. Same for Darius. All of those, that grab is, with the exception of Mordekaiser, very short range, right? And with the Mordekaiser one, movement speed is really good for dodging it. So, all of those are outside of your auto range. You want to walk up, auto a minion, and then they will usually walk at you, press their grab, and you'll, as long as you back off as soon as they start walking at you, you'll be right outside of their range. Because I guarantee you, every single melee top laner is faster than you. Thresh has one of the lowest base movement speeds in the game. You will need Fleet Footwork into those matchups. Then, there are the matchups where Fleet doesn't actually help you. Grasp of the Undying is strong into Garen and Mundo. Stronger into Mundo because Garen likes to proxy, but that's okay. These are runes that scale a little bit harder than Fleet Footwork, because both Garen and Mundo are easy lanes. A quick disclaimer when fighting Garen, if he goes to the proxy, let the wave crash unless you have your Bomby Cinder slash tier. You want both of those items to be able to contest the wave because you don't want the wave to hit your tower, but you don't want to take too much damage from the wave because he can always tower dive you with ult and kill you and get out for free. So you want to make sure that you are not taking too much damage from the wave. Your shield should be enough to stop all waves except for cannon waves, as long as you have bombies, and tier will give you enough mana. And here's a special case. I rarely use this rune, but into Olaf and Tryndamere very specifically, I like to go Phase Rush, because Olaf not only is faster than you, but he has a slow, and he's CC immune. And Tryndamere doesn't care about CC because he's got his dash, his slow, and he has invulnerability. So you're playing around their level 6s. This has saved me against both of those champions incredibly. Okay, you could probably take Fleet in the Tryndamere, or even PTA if you're really confident, but I wouldn't. But Phase Rush is extremely safe into them, and it actually gives pretty good scaling, surprisingly. And yeah, and in that specific matchup, I like to go the mini rune for movement speed, because that movement speed is extremely useful. You can also switch out water walking, but I like water walking. It allows you to roam mid whenever, say, Olaf gets pissed off and leaves lane, or Tryndamere gets pissed off and leaves lane. Now you can shove wave and then rotate mid and then maybe pick up a kill for your mid laner. So very strong there. For build, into like 90% of matchups, you're going to want to go Sunfire. It kind of seems counterintuitive because Thresh naturally has a lot of armor late game, but he has almost no magic resist. He has like a base magic resist around 40 at level 18. It's very low. So you would think you'd want to build magic resist, but you don't want to build magic resist early into like 90% of matchups. You do want to, if you're into a AP matchup, I do not recommend rushing Hollow Radiance, which is this purple item here. I recommend going Bomby Cinder into Abyssal. You can forego the tier into most AP matchups because they don't usually proxy. There's not really a proxy AP champion, and if you're fighting Singed, don't build for Singed. Build for his team, okay? Singed is not somebody you want to fight. You do not want to build to fight Singed. You want to build to fight his team. If the enemy team is AD, you just won the lottery, okay? Especially if you had, like, first pick as Thresh, because those people did not think when they were picking their team. If they have 4 or 5 AD champions, especially if they're, like, 3 or 4 auto-attackers, they are not going to have a fun time into you. Thresh's late game with this build right here can get upwards of 600 armor. More realistically, 450, but he can get a ton of armor. So, your Thornmail's going to be putting in the work, Sunfire's going to be putting in the work, you're going to be chilling, I promise you. And this is the matchup. Magic Resist. This is a laning phase that I despise, because you're forced to build MR. Most of the time, it's the enemy top laner that's AD, and the rest of his team is AP. And so you usually still want to go Sunfire first, and go Magic Resist Boots into Abyssal. But if your laner is AP, and most of his team is AP, you're going to want to go Bombies into Abyssal, into Hollow, Force of Nature, Canic. All those items are good options. If you buy tier early, Fimbulwinter is good into both damage types. And as for boots, let's talk about boots real quick. So, for boots, in most games, you're going to want to go Swifties, and then these are just kind of matchup dependent, the resistance boots. If the team is slightly higher MR, or slightly higher AD, or slightly, more importantly, more auto-attackers, or more CC, then you choose between those items, and sometimes you go Symbiotic Souls as Thresh top. I used to do it a lot, actually. I would go Symbiotic, and then I would run Deadman's Plate, or I would go the support alternative for Deadman's Plate that does less damage, but shares the movement speed with your team. I don't really build that anymore, but you totally could. They're both perfectly strong on Thresh, especially Deadman's, because your auto attack. Into AD comps, it's kind of simple. You're going to most of the time want to go armor boots. If you think you're going to have plenty of armor because you're building full AD, go swiftness boots. And if there's one magic damage champion and a lot of CC, go magic resist boots. The tenacity will be extremely helpful. You can even forgo one of these damage items, because these are kind of your core items. Unending Despair is also if there's magic damage a little bit, or if you just need the sustain. Uh, with this build, you can switch out Shield Bash on the Grasp tree if you go to the direct Grasp tree, and you can go for tower destruction instead. And finally, for magic resist, in a high AP teams, you almost always want to go magic resist boots because you have so little magic resist. You can be like 3 items magic resist, 1 item armor, and be like 50-50. It's insane how much armor Thresh gets, especially if you're farming well and you're getting a lot of stacks wherever you can. Then secondly, you're going to want to go swiftness boots if you don't need magic resist boots. And then if there's like if it's like a Teemo with some like Warwick jungle, and then like, you know, so Kog'Maw bot lane, so just a lot of magic damage, but like they're mostly auto attackers, just go armor boots. It's going to save you more in the long run. So and finally, for combos, these are very simple combos, so I'm sure that you will be able to manage them. I'll go through. So this one is probably your most common combo on Thresh, where, say, it's the start of a team fight, or maybe even you're just in a bush. I kind of ulted a little early here. Don't do what I did. Ult when your Q connects, not before. I knew my Q was going to hit, obviously. So as soon as your Q connects, press R, and then your R will activate about then, and then E them into your R. If you're pulling at an angle, they won't be in at this point. The pull will bring them in. If they're closer to you, you can push them away into your ult, and etc. But this isn't a combo you should be looking for. This is a combo that happens. All right. If your Q hits, make this combo happen because it does quite insane damage. You have a 90% AP ratio on E. I think 70 or 80% on my bad. 90% on Q, 70 or 80 on E, and 100% on ult. And again, your auto attacks do 1.7 per soul, and you get 1 AP per soul as well. 1 AP and 1 armor per soul, and you also get 1 shield per soul. So very simple combo there. Here's a little bit different. You'll see a little mechanic that Thresh has. If you're looking in one direction and you queue a different one, as long as the difference between those directions isn't too far, it will look like you're queuing where you're looking, where you're actually queuing somewhere else. So look, I'm looking this way, right? My character is looking this way, but I'm able to queue this way. Well, what am I doing? Oh, I'm kind of stupid. So, okay, that's a much more reliable combo. If you can hit your E, it's almost always going to hit your Q. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Me yapping a bit. And then tower can aggro. So here, right here, I'm looking this way. My hook is going this way. It looks like I'm hooking this way. And then the hook goes out that way. So a lot of times, especially if you have like the jungler there and the top laner, and they're both half HP, and you're under tower, you can like look at the top laner and hook the jungler, and they won't expect it. And then throw your ult down. Usually under tower, if people respect your ult, they will flash over it. And I think on Thresh, going flash for ult, like their flash for your ult, is insanely useful. Oh, I restarted the video. I don't even know how I did that. I pressed spacebar. Anyways, let's keep going. Let's keep going. The next one is a repeat of the reliable combo, but it's with tower on. So you can see just how far away they are from tower. And yet they're still going to get hooked into tower with just E. So right there, they'll start taking tower shots, and then R, and if they try to walk out, your ult will apply a 99% slow and do 100% AP plus like 300 base at max rank. It's insanely strong in countering a tower dive. Insanely strong. And if they do not flash over it, 99% of the time they die, because the ult itself makes them take like 2 extra tower shots. And here we're going to be showing off how to best use Phase Rush. So this is the combo for Phase Rush I use into Olaf primarily, because Olaf has that CC immunity on his ult. So if he's ulting at you and he runs at you and he hits a Q, let's imagine that's the scenario. We're gonna auto E auto and run away. And with Swiftness Boots, we should be faster than him with Phase Rush and Swiftness Boots. Olaf's will often go Phase Rush as well, or they'll go something else, but they usually go Stride Breaker first. So they might be just as fast as you, but at least he has to stutter step while attacking. And if he applies his Phase Rush before you apply yours, his will run out, and you'll be able to get away from him in time. Especially seeing how you always want to go Ghost into Tryndamere and Olaf. I usually run Ghost TP anyways, with the exception of the Garen and Darius matchup. I don't like that, and same with Set. Garen, Darius, and Set. I don't like running Ghost. I like Flash instead. Flash is nice though because you can flash them in. You can also go Flash for Mordekaiser, but I'm confident enough that I can use Ghost. I would recommend Flash, though, for him. This is the combo that you can use on Tryndamere instead, because against Tryndamere, it's not just getting away from him, it's also keeping him from coming towards you that matters more, so it's okay to hook him. So you're going to auto EQ, and it's basically a guaranteed hook. If he dashes towards you, you'll cancel his dash, so you won't take any damage from his dash, and then he won't actually go as far either, especially if he goes to dash behind you. You can also cancel Tryndamere dash with your E, which is extremely easy to do. And one of the biggest things that you need to learn into any matchup is knocking back dashes. So if you're playing against Gragas or Jax, those are dashes that are very quick, but if you can push them away, it basically just stops them right in their track. So they're not actually able to go in on you. And it's very, very strong. So that's just about it. Let's talk a little bit about. I'm trying to exit full screen. Let us talk a little bit about Thresh's ratios. All right. So let us just the max level real quick. And we'll just go with what we have. So we have a 90% AP ratio on your Q, a 70% on your E, 100% on ult, no AP ratio on W, and let's look at the fine details. So Thresh's E passive, which is the Flay passive, is an auto attack enhancement that happens over time. Sorry about this. I had something on my screen. It starts out with the on-hit portion, which is 170% of souls, or 17 on-hit every 10 souls. That means that Thresh scales really well with attack speed. Also, after 10 seconds of being out of combat, without attacking, you can be in combat, without attacking, Thresh's next auto attack will do the on-hit plus 210% of his total AD, plus base AD, any other on-hit, whatever. Okay? So that effectively means that after not attacking for 10 seconds, Thresh's next auto attack is on hit plus 310% total AD. And it's not a step up, it's linearly scaling. So after 3 seconds, it's 30, it's a third of that. You know what I mean? It's 30% of that, not a third. A little something that a lot of people get confused. They think that Thresh is Senna, and that Thresh will have a lower chance of getting a soul if he kills the minion. That is not true. That is what Senna has, indeed, but Thresh does not have that problem. So let's just farm up a couple souls real quick. And we'll look back at our numbers. Okay, so we have 3 souls. We have 5 on hand. At 20 minutes, you usually want about 85 or 90 souls. It's okay to have a little bit less than that, and it's good to think of Thresh souls as gold value. So, Thresh souls have about an 80 gold per soul value, somewhere around there, because they give the 1.7 on hit, they give the 1 shield, the 2 shield, sorry, they give the AP, and they give the armor. All strong stats. Thresh's Lantern can pick up souls. And, yeah. So now at 5 souls, we have 9 on hit, and so on. Let's look at this charged attack against the cannon. We just did 204 damage, plus 40. And then it didn't quite show the base AD. Yeah. It's 204 magic plus the 90 physical. 208 plus 93 physical. So one thing you gotta understand as Thresh top is you will encounter proxy characters. So let's talk about the fundamentals of proxying. So when a proxy is initiated, there is always the proxyer and the proxy. The proxy is whoever is being proxied on, right? The proxyer can only benefit from proxying under two scenarios. If they outscale the enemy, or if they draw attention from the whole team. That's where Baus's fundamentals come in. That's why Baus loves to proxy, because say you're this far into the enemy, and the top laner starts losing waves because he's trying to get you. The mid laner rotates, loses waves. They get a dragon, and all that happens is that you die. So you get a dragon, your team gets a dragon, mid lane loses farm, top lane loses farm, and you're not worth gold because you've died a ton. Right? That's kind of the fundamentals of proxying that Baus uses. But say you're Singed. Singed is a champion who outscales, for instance, Ornn. Ornn has a pretty dang good late game, but it's not quite the same as Singed late game. Singed doesn't want to lane against Ornn, so he will sack a wave, he'll lose 6 minions, and he will guarantee that he gets every minion after that point by proxying. Singed will outscale Ornn over time. Thresh happens to be one of the best scaling champions in the game. There are very few exceptions that outscale him. There's Mundo, Cho'Gath, things like that get really high value from their scaling aspects. Nasus, who gets an incredible amount of value from his stacks. So Nasus actually basically counters Thresh late game, because he's got the armor pen on his E, he's got the attack speed shred, and he has way better value on his stacks. But with those few exceptions, a lot of champions that proxy are like Garen, Warwick, Set, Renekton. All those champions get outscaled by Thresh. So in those matchups, you just want to back by Tear of the Goddess and Bami's Cinder. And let's see if I can simulate a proxy. So let's say this is the enemy champion. They've walked past my tower, and now they're proxying, which means I will never get a wave again. This wave is going to shove under their tower because they sacked a wave for it, which this would have been a bad wave to sack. But now the wave will always push into me. So the best thing I can do is to not die. If I didn't have Bommies and Tier, I would let them go under tower. But because I have Bommies and Tier, let's just pretend I didn't just use my shield. We're going to throw down a shield, auto-attack the front wave, and then let Bommies kill the back. Trust me, even though I'm max level, this will be enough. As long as you'll do less auto-attack damage, your shield will be enough. If it's a cannon wave, you might want to let cannon walk under tower. Take some shots, but take aggro from cannon. Right? Just like that. You know, the proxy, he's getting all the waves, I'm getting all the waves. I'm currently outscaling. I'm getting, like, on average, like, 3 souls per wave. It's good, right? 3 souls per wave, that's almost 200 gold extra value than he's getting, say, Garen. Garen does technically scale just a teensy tiny bit, but it's not much. If you have enough damage, which obviously I do now, you can do it and take very minimal damage. But I would recommend just letting tower hit the cannon. So that's pretty much all you need to know about the laning phase specifically. Just don't greed. Use your fundamentals. Don't greed. Make sure that you're playing safe. It's okay to lose a little bit of farm on Thresh, right? You have the souls. One last thing. Into like Nasus, Kayle, that champions that outscale you, with the exception of Cho'Gath, play aggressive early. Do not play aggressive into Cho'Gath. He will always win. Play aggressive early into a lot of champions that outscale you. Because chances are, because you're ranged, you can actually beat them, or at least zone them off the wave. Be mindful, don't take too much damage from the wave, don't take too much damage from them. You want to actually dodge their abilities, and you want to try and keep them maybe 2-3 levels down, yeah, optimally. That's not really super realistic as Thresh, but try to just keep them weak. Try to knock them away from the wave, get the wave frozen by your tower. Don't buy any wave clear that early, because you don't want the wave pushing into them, you want the wave pushing into you. And just chill. Chill out and relax. Stay under your tower into bad early game matchups like Garen, things that you outscale, and zone off the wave. It's genuinely worth it as Thresh to get 0 CS, 0 XP if the enemy Nasus is getting 0 XP, 0 stacks, 0 farm. Because, like, genuinely, you're getting more in that scenario. You are still a walking CC. You still have your Qs, still have your E, still have your R, and you can still pull people with your lantern. Nasus cannot do that. Okay? Nasus, without any stacks, without any gold, he is useless. Kale, without any stacks, without any levels, without any gold, she's useless. Okay? Cho'Gath, without any stacks, without any gold, he is useless. All those champions rely on their stacks. Thresh is still useful without his stacks, without his gold, without any of that. So just play it smart. I hope you guys enjoy your future of playing Thresh top lane. I appreciate your time, and I will see you later.